focus right now is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the UAE. Prime Minister Modi has received a grand welcome by the United Arab Emirates President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan as he arrived in Abu Dhabi earlier today. The two leaders hugged each other and the Prime Minister also received a guard of honor upon his arrival. Prime Minister Modi is currently, as we speak, holding his bilateral meeting with the Gulf nation's top leader, President Al Nahyan, to take forward the bilateral strategic partnership between our two nations. Today, viewers, at night at 8 p.m, Prime Minister Modi will be addressing the diaspora in a grand event and will also be inaugurating the first ever Hindu temple in the Middle East tomorrow. And as we speak, the bilateral between India and the UAE continues. Important conversation there between the leaders of our two nations and an exchange on our screens going on as well. My colleague Rakesh with us on the broadcast. Rakesh, if you can take our viewers through the details of this bilateral between India and the UAE.
देखिए, प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी यूएई पहुंच गए और अबू धाबी पहुंचने पर वहां के राष्ट्रपति मोहम्मद बिन जायद अल नहयान पीएम मोदी का स्वागत किया है और भारत के प्रधानमंत्री खाड़ी देश की 2 दिवसीय यात्रा पर हैं। इसके बाद वो बुधवार को कतर की राजधानी दोहा की यात्रा भी करेंगे और जिस तरह से प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा कि मुझे 7 बार यूएई आने का मौका मिला है। भारत और यूएई के बीच आज बेहद मजबूत संबंध है और हर क्षेत्र में साझेदारी जो है बढ़ेगी और जिस तरह से अरब वर्ल्ड में जो लहराया है परचम प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी का, और जैसा कि ऐलान मोदी आज कार्यक्रम है जहां पर जिस तरह से प्रधानमंत्री का जो प्रवासी भारतीय वहां पर स्वागत करेंगे, तो अरब वर्ल्ड में जिस तरह से जोश के साथ प्रधानमंत्री का स्वागत हुआ है उसके लिए प्रधानमंत्री ने धन्यवाद दिया है। और अरब वर्ल्ड में ये जिस तरह से भारत को लेकर जो सकारात्मक रुख सामने आया है, ये साफ दिखाता है कि किस तरह से समय बदला है और प्रधानमंत्री मोदी और यूएई के राष्ट्रपति के बीच जो है बातचीत भी होनी है, जो कि काफी अहम माना जा रहा है। कई क्षेत्रों में जो है साझेदारी होगी, तो ये महत्वपूर्ण है। बायलैटरल टॉक्स है, तो राष्ट्रपति शेख मोहम्मद बिन जायद के साथ बातचीत और जिस तरह से स्वागत हुआ उसके लिए प्रधानमंत्री ने आभार जताया है।
Right, absolutely, Rakesh. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. With that, we shift our focus to our guests who are joining us on the broadcast as well. I have with me Sumit Peer and Professor Madhav Nalapat. Let me begin this conversation with Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, grand welcome there, the red carpet being rolled out for Prime Minister Modi. We are expecting the big temple inauguration to take place tomorrow, but today is a big diaspora event in the evening. And right now, he is holding his bilateral talks with the UAE. I want to understand from your perspective, Professor Nalapat, it is election season in India. It's a very crucial time before the Lok Sabha polls. They'll be announced any time now. Before that, during this cycle, why is it that you feel the Prime Minister has chosen to visit the UAE?
Look, the fact of the matter is that the Prime Minister of India is on duty 24/7, round the clock, 365 days in a year. You can't stop the business of government,
right.
and the head of the government cannot stop functioning for a single day, frankly. So, whether at election time or not election time, the fact of the matter is the Prime Minister has to keep working. And one of the important cornerstones of our foreign policy is the excellent relationship that we have with countries in West Asia. The UAE is a staunch and steadfast friend of India. Don't forget that millions of Indians are working in West Asia. Millions of Indians are working there. And among all the different nationalities that are working in West Asia, I would say Indians are the most outstanding in terms of being law-abiding, in terms of being hardworking, and in terms of respecting the local traditions. So this is an extremely important bilateral meeting. And I'm sorry to say that despite a lot of tall talk about India and some different countries in the world, governments in the past have frankly ignored this very, very vital and important region, West Asia. Prime Minister Modi has paid special attention to it. And as a consequence, the relationship has developed in a very, very strong manner. And I think that is a very, very, very crucial development, because the fact is that this region can be a major source of investment into India. We are seeing, as it is, this region is providing a lot of capital transfer to India in the form of remittances. Every year, remittances are increasing from West Asia to India. It's a constant flow by the hardworking Indians who are working there. It's an extremely important relationship. And may I say that the ruling families of Dubai, the ruling family of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Al Nahyan, these are all families which have got very strong links with India. They have all visited India multiple times. They have many friends in India. They have many friends from India. And the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has been a very good friend of several of the key leaders in West Asia, especially the leader that he's meeting now, the President of the UAE, under whose leadership, may I say, UAE has come as an international example of what a country should be: modern and moderate.
Absolutely. Professor Nalapat, I will come to you in just a moment. Sumit, your thoughts as well on the Prime Minister's visit to the UAE. Yes, of course, as Professor Nalapat pointed out, that his duties as the head of the nation, as Prime Minister, do not stop, whether it's election season or not. But the timing and the fact that one chooses to go to the UAE to hold this 2-day bilateral, and then from there he'll be heading to Qatar, of course, there's more to it.
Devika ji, thanks for having me on your show. On the onset, I completely concur with what Professor Madhav Nalapat had said. I'll begin from where Professor Saab left. You see, you have to understand, when it comes to UAE, you have a very strong diaspora connect with whole of, what we call as Middle East or West Asia. After USA, the second biggest diaspora is in Middle East. From remittances point of view, it is important. From cultural point of view, it is important. And let me come to the economics of it. Now, if you look at, for example, Qatar, we have 840,000 Indians who live in Qatar today. 27% of the Qatar is inhabited by Indians and 15% of the Qatar is Hindu, by the way, if you look at graphics. Now, if you look at UAE specifically, UAE is the country which is our third biggest export destination in the world, third biggest. UAE is our third biggest trading partner. The mutual trade is $83 billion. We are expecting it to go to 100 billion in next 10 years, but I think in next 2 years, it will reach $100 billion. Now, the third in the top 5 investment destinations, or the FDI, where the FDI is coming from, it is UAE. This is the only country where you have done an exchange for oil in local currency. This is the only country where you are talking of FTA, where a lot of transactions will be done in local currency. This is the only country where you will be importing 2 lakh kilos of gold and possibly paying in the local currency. So if you look at medical tourism, if you look at investment, trade, tourism, and besides that, when it comes to investment in India, if you look at the solar parks, number one investor is UAE. If you look at the wind parks, number one investor is UAE. If you look at the food chains, the number one investor as on date is UAE. If you look at the investments in Kashmir, they're primarily coming from 2 places, UAE and Saudis. So if you look at that thing, what Prime Minister Modi has changed, he's a Karam Yogi. He never kind of gives, even before you can imagine when he did the last rites of his mother, he straightway went to inaugurate a Vande Bharat Express. That is the kind of Karam Yogi we are talking about. So Karam Yogis, it doesn't matter. It is election, it is no election. He will keep on doing what the work he's doing. So economically, strategically, geopolitically, diaspora wise, it's a very important place. And let's not forget, in 2018, Prime Minister Modi has laid the foundation stone for the temple. Now in 2024, now the temple is ready, almost 6 years. Now when it is ready, and it's a Shubh Muhurta, which is tomorrow. So these people invited Prime Minister Modi. He didn't go on his own. He got an invitation and they requested him, can you kindly come and inaugurate the temple? Because a lot of people will want to see it as a political event. No, he got a formal invitation from them, the organizing committee, from BAPS people, to come and inaugurate the temple. So Prime Minister Modi went there to inaugurate the temple. He did his bilaterals. He'll be meeting the diaspora. And I think, as per my knowledge, we are getting around 100,000 diaspora there. So it's the biggest our diaspora meet in the Middle East, and no leader has been able to get that. If you look at the quantum of trade relations, if you look at the number of terrorists which even Middle Eastern countries have handed over to us, it is phenomenal. If you look at this Diaspora Connect, the first ever Hindu temple in Islamic heartland, it is done under Prime Minister Modi. Modi hai to mumkin hai. So, when the way we are seeing it is happening and the way these people are cooperating, investing, trade is happening, FTAs are happening, local currency things are happening. UAE is the first country, ma'am, where after Russia, where we paid for our crude in local rupees. So there are a lot of things these people are cooperating with us. They need India, we need them, they need food for us, they need markets. And with the oil eventually, which is the oil-based economies are not going to last for long. They are also aligning with India and America for that matter. If you talk of UAEs and Saudis, whereas people like Iran are aligning with China, that is given. So even in the Islamic world, there's a division who aligns with where, and we can see clearly UAE, Saudis, a lot of these countries, they are aligning with India, and they are doing it amidst their local pressures and all. And what they really appreciate that the Indian foreign policy is not religion based. We are not getting religion into everything. That is what they like. The diaspora is good, business is good, economy is good, strategic ties are good. And for example, you see UAE has these Rafales. The MRO of Rafale is going to be in India. For a lot of things, these people come to India. And I mean, based on my experience of traveling to Oman, for example, if I have a fracture there, you can do a plaster. Beyond a plaster, you have two destinations. One is UK, one is India. So these people prefer to come to India. It's not because India is only cheap, because the kind of hostility they get it, the kind of care they get here, the kind of apnapan they get here, they don't get it in UK, they don't get that in America. That is what India has done. And they appreciate that. They welcome that. And that is Prime Minister Modi, I would say, Devkaji, has taken ties to a different level. $83 billion of trade is no kidding. Think of a country like Pakistan, where 280 billions is the total GDP. They are sulking. They are literally, fuming when I gave them this number, when it was announced by the MEA yesterday, $83 billion. And when I'm going to reiterate this $83 billion, imagine a country who talks of Islam every day, who talks of OIC every day, who talks of Musalman every day, and they don't have a billion in their bank account. So these are the things what Prime Minister Modi has done. And his relation with the sheikhs is fantastic. It's personal, it is direct, it is man to man, and that has been a very important factor to take relations to the next level. Devika ji.
Okay, Sumit, Professor Nalapat, stay on with us. I'm being told that some first bits of what the Prime Minister said in his bilateral have now come to us. Let's quickly try and listen into what is it that he said.
सांझी भागीदारी हो रही है। आज भी हम कई महत्वपूर्ण फैसले करने जा रहे हैं। हम यूपीआई मेरा और हमारा जीवन कार्ड, इन दोनों का एक प्रकार से एक नया युग शुरू हो रहा है फिनटेक का, और ये भी अपने आप में बहुत बड़ा है। उसी प्रकार से मैं आपका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करना चाहूंगा कि आप समय निकाल करके मेरा निमंत्रण स्वीकार करके मेरे होम स्टेट आए। वाइब्रेंट गुजरात समिट को आपने एक नई ऊंचाई दी और उसके कारण उसका गौरव भी बढ़ा है, विश्व में उस इवेंट की भी प्रतिष्ठा बढ़ी है। तो आपका आना और आपने वहां जो उद्बोधन किया वो आज भी हमारे देश के लोगों के लिए बड़ा प्रेरक है, उत्साहवर्धक है। मैं इसके लिए भी आपका आभारी हूं। आपकी भारत के प्रति जो लगाव है और आपकी यूएई के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए जो विजन है, उसका एक उदाहरण मैं देख रहा हूं। यहां बीएपीएस का मंदिर बनना आपके सहयोग के बिना ये संभव ही नहीं था। और मेरी पहली मुलाकात थी, मैंने सिंपली आपको रिक्वेस्ट की कि जरा आप देख लीजिए, और पलक झपकते ही आपने उसका निर्णय करके मुझे बता दिया कि आप बस जगह पर ऐसे उंगली रख दीजिए, आपको जगह मिल जाएगी। शायद इतना विश्वास, इतना प्यार अपने आप में एक बहुत ही अनोखे संबंधों की ये शक्ति को दर्शाता है। ब्रदर, मैं ये भी खुशी की बात है आज कि हम लोग बायलैटरल इन्वेस्टमेंट ट्रीटी करने जा रहे हैं। इसका भी एक लंबा प्रभाव होने वाला है, और मैं मानता हूं खास करके G20 समूह के देश हैं, उनके लिए भी एक बहुत बड़ी खबर बनेगी है कि यूएई और भारत इस महत्वपूर्ण दिशा में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। आईमेक में जिस प्रकार से आपका सहयोग मिला है, आपने आईमेक को आगे बढ़ाने की दिशा में जो काम किया है वो मैं मानता हूं पूरे इस क्षेत्र के लिए उसको जोड़ने का तो काम करेगा ही, लेकिन आर्थिक विकास के एक नए द्वार खोलेगा। हमारी आने वाली पीढ़ियां जरूर इस आईमेक को लेकर के सोचेगी कि ऐसे भी हमारे प्रेसिडेंट थे कि जिन्होंने दुनिया को दिशा दिखाई और इतना बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण कार्य आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए आपने किया है। आदरणीय आईनेस, मैं ब्रदर ये भी कहूंगा कि आज जो हमारे भारतीय समुदाय का जो एक पब्लिक इवेंट हो रहा है, मुझे बताया गया कि हजारों की तादाद में लोग आ रहे हैं। ये आपके सहयोग के बिना, आपके प्यार के बिना संभव नहीं है, और इसके लिए भी मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं।
Was Prime Minister Modi's speech, one can say, and his message to the UAE as he sits there for his bilateral. Let me bring Professor Nalapat back into the conversation. Professor Nalapat, key themes of the Prime Minister's talk there in his bilateral. Firstly, he talks about fintech, and we were getting some visuals as well of once again some technology there being on display. So I'm going to take it bit by bit. When we talk about fintech, why exactly does India then need to look at the Middle East as not only a market but also a partner in developing that technology further?
Look, let me say that in my view, an education alliance between India and the Middle East will be extremely valuable to both sides. The fact of the matter is, Devika, that citizens of India are spending tens of billions of US dollars sending their children to study in Western universities, where quite frankly, many of them are learning a lot of things outside the classroom, more outside the classroom than inside the classroom. And I'm not sure very many of those things are going to be very helpful in their futures. At the same time, tens of billions are being spent. The fact is, India can earn at least $100 billion a year, if not more, in basically exporting our educational talent outside. And from that point of view, one of the important locations where this could go is the Middle East, where you've got a vibrant young population. And that vibrant young population, very, very, if I may say so, a population fully ready to learn, a population that under the very wise rulership of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed of the UAE, His Highness the ruler of Dubai, an extremely modern and modernizing country, and therefore a population that is young and modern and modernizing. Unlike, for example, young populations in some parts of the world that are ruled by more fundamentalist elements. So I'd only like to say that this particular visit illustrates the point that we are all one common humanity. We are all children of the same Almighty. And I think that warmth is there between the heads of government of the UAE and India. We are seeing that warmth in the tone, in the language used by Prime Minister Modi about his UAE counterpart. And I'm sure a similar affection is there where his UAE counterpart is concerned about Prime Minister Modi. I think that kind of affection is reflective of the affection of millions of people who, citizens of these countries, and millions of people who are citizens of our country. I think it's a very, very important people-to-people connect, and you're seeing that connect from at the very highest level of government, just as you're seeing that connect equally strongly at all levels of people-to-people connect.
Absolutely. Professor Nalapat, I will come to you in just a moment. Sumit, talking about the second aspect and just taking forward what Professor Nalapat said about people-to-people connect, that's also something that has been emphasized by the Prime Minister. He's sharing an anecdote almost there where he says that in our last few meetings in the past few years, I did raise and highlight the fact that there is a large Indian population, that there's a large Hindu population, and the UAE must look into what can be done. And he said that it was without much nudging from India that the land was ultimately given by the UAE for the construction of this first and absolutely grand, fantastic temple that's coming up, that will be inaugurated tomorrow. Once again, a gesture there very graciously being accepted by India, by the Prime Minister, by the leader of the nation, but at the same time also letting the UAE know that, listen, we do respect your gesture, we acknowledge it and we respect it. It's a big thing that you've done for us, and this will help, of course, in taking the people-to-people ties forward.
You see, Devika ji, there are a couple of things here. First of all, it was impossible to think a Hindu temple in the Islamic heartland of this magnitude and this stature. And what Prime Minister Modi, if I heard correctly, because I could not see it, Prime Minister Modi was addressing him as a brother. So usually Prime Minister Modi does not, address people as brothers. So that is the kind of a contact and connect you're talking about. You're like a brother to me, and he's mentioning that brother. And what I liked, he said, I just told you that can you consider a Hindu temple? And without the next second, you told me, आपने पलक झपकाते ही बोला कि आप जमीन पे हाथ रखो. Put the finger where do you want the land, it will be given. That decision happened in a split second. That talks of the intent. So without you or that decision, the temple would have not come. And today, thousands of people are coming here. Because as per my knowledge, around 100,000, 1 lakh log aa rahe hain. So with that kind of a gathering, you have to give the permissions, you have to give the stadium, you have to give the police, Vyavastha, and you have to do a hell lot of things to make it happen. And without your support, that could have not happened. So there are two acknowledgements which are coming from the Honorable Prime Minister directly. One is addressing him as a brother. Second is this, what we call as Hindu temple, that you allocated the land at a instant. Okay, keep the finger, I'll give the land. And today, how many people are coming there and all, it would have not been possible without you. And he also mentioned about the UPI. You see, UPI is also important, Devika ji, because, UPI is already into 30 countries. Now, France is getting UPI. Now, when you get UPI, what we did with Singapore, exactly we are going to do with here. Because with Singapore today, you can transfer money from business to business using UPI. You don't need a SWIFT in between. So UAE being our third biggest trading partner, once the UPI is there, then the businesses can transfer money to each other without SWIFT. So, if you relieve your dependence from SWIFT, it's a big, important fintech achievement, because UAE doesn't have a lot of population. So from a retail perspective, it's not such a big deal. Yeah, India rupee will work there, all that is thing. But if the businesses are able to transit money from UPI to UPI directly, imagine $83 billion of transactions will land up into the kitty of UPI. Because today we are using SWIFT to do that. Now with the UPI, that money will go through UPI. Imagine the kind of, thing we have created. Imagine what is the relevance here. So UPI is a very, very strategic thing for India, and Prime Minister Modi clearly mentioned it about the UPI. So these are the things. How then, when people in UAE start using UPI, they get access to Indian rupees. They see how beautifully the system works, because you're able to also cement your legacy at the common man's level. Wherein he says this is Indian technology, Hindustani technology, and this technology of Bharat is doing fantastic. So that elevates the stature of the country, that elevates the stature of the fintech, that elevates the scientific bent of mind and the ease of doing business, what Prime Minister Modi has been talking about. So UPI is not only for Indians, it's a gift to the whole world. I mean, that is what the Vasudevam Kutumbakam is all about. And greatest thing is we cut the dependence from SWIFT. $83 billion going to UPI will be mind-boggling. I'm telling you, Devikaji, will be like a dream come true. And if we can do this with all our amazing partners, so tomorrow we are out of the American controlled, driven, owned and running to the whims and fancies of America, the SWIFT system. We might not need the SWIFT system, and this will also enable local currency trading. So these are the two very finite advantages which I see, which Prime Minister Modi is talking here. So UPI is something not to be missed, and it will be the thing of the visit. Devika ji.
Right, absolutely. I also have Gautam Mukherjee joining me on the broadcast. Gautam, I'd like to just get your first thoughts on this big visit by the Prime Minister to the UAE. We've just heard what he's had to say. He's focused on highlighting the growing relations between India and the UAE, and really acknowledging this big gesture of the temple that has now been constructed in Abu Dhabi for this, very large Indian diaspora of the UAE?
Well, Devika, the UAE has been a first mover in terms of reorienting its policies towards India. And of course, we've been there as Indians for centuries and certainly for the last many decades. But there was always some kind of, if you like, bias towards Pakistan, which has completely disappeared because of the reorientation of the UAE. Similar things have happened in Saudi Arabia. Similar things are about to happen, I do believe, in Qatar, which also has been hostile at the instigation of the Pakistanis and the ISI, and to some extent Turkey, one or two other members of the OIC, and their own policy of backing jihad and Islamist extremism, which I think they want to change in Qatar as well. Bahrain is a small country, but is very favorable towards India. Israel, of course. So the entire area is now well inclined towards India, and we have a lot to offer. It isn't a one-way street. They have indeed given us this land for us to build this gorgeous temple that has been pending in action for over 2 decades. But I anticipate large investments. UAE has already indicated 50 billion in India, which is, comparable to the entire EU that is talking of 100 billion. Similar kinds of investments from Saudi Arabia are also expected. This is transformative, not only for the FDI that will come in, but also for the profits that the UAE will gain from investing in India. It isn't any kind of charity. It is the latching on to a company, to a country that is growing very quickly towards third position. And third position is just a position. After that, it is a constant and relentless growth of the GDP and the economy for years to come, right up to 2147 and beyond. We will also eventually slow down in our population, and our per capita will keep on growing. So it is a virtuous cycle of of a relationship. There are 8 million people in the Gulf, Indians. Most of the remittances that come into India, and we have the largest amount of remittances from abroad, also come in from the Gulf.
Right.
But some aspects of this have always been there, and some aspects are coming in for the first time. Sumit mentioned UPI. Now, UPI is indeed path-breaking, and many countries are adopting it for its simplicity and its ease of operation. And, it's all Indian ingenuity, which is now starting to be recognized more and more.
Absolutely. Gautam Mukherjee, as you were speaking, my team has also sent me a screenshot of from the video that had been released of Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan now showing his RuPay card, and both the leaders then using that technology as well. Let me bring in Major Sudhakarji into the conversation here. We can go back to the normal screen now. We've shown the card already. Major Sudhakarji, very interesting there that as soon as the Prime Minister lands in the UAE, of course, there are some big ticket events that are lined up, right? There's a diaspora event that's going to happen at 8 p.m. tonight. There is the big temple inauguration that is slated to happen tomorrow. But the focus of a few minutes of a soundbite that the Prime Minister has also released on his social media has been fintech, quite interestingly. And this is the visual that's come out of it that we're putting out on our screens of the UAE leader now sort of flaunting his own RuPay card and using that tech with Prime Minister Modi, as some officials were explaining it further to him.
Yeah, Devika, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show. They're very eminent panelists. I would leave the better of the time for them. But having been in Middle East and particularly in Oman for some time, I can say that the wave of liberalization can be felt anywhere and everywhere. The complete Arabic countries or the GCC, they are on an upswing towards diversification. This I have realized myself, and they are diversifying gradually from oil industry to anything that you can name. Textile, medical, chemicals, jewelry, and a host of other things. By and by doing so, you see the white and the blue color workers or the employees all over the GCC and by and large, I would say all the Arabic countries, you have a major pie or the major percentage of people who are the central workforce and leadership from India. That's a very proud kind of a milestone that one actually feels like sharing. But whatever you've shared in the narrative, Devika, I must say it's a historic moment for India. And this particular initiative by the Prime Minister, whether you call it fintech or you show the card, I must acknowledge the fact there is a very deep cerebral outreach by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, which a common man will not be able to fathom. The very fact that Sumit was trying to highlight, you see, he has highlighted two aspects of the UPI. I am saying it is such a kind of a network, it will bind the entire world. What we have been saying, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it is going to integrate the society. Today, all nations in the world are polarized. They are totally actually, after their national interest. So this is an indirect way. Gradually, it will assume a kind of a direct form. To my understanding, it is going to hold the global body or the global order together. Maybe in 21st century to the later part, things may actually transform for the larger good of rules-based international order. Mindful of the fact that none of us have seen what is this rule that we are talking about. Who's the formulator of the rule? Is that country's superpower abiding by the rules? Here is an opportunity for India, I think, to make steadfast movement ahead progressively and in a forward-looking manner. Third and most important point, Devika, that I wish to highlight is technology and the strategic location of UAE. And let's share with our viewers that UAE is such a location. It is a little larger than Mumbai, I would say, and it has got a large Indian diaspora, and it is diversifying to all kinds of industry today. The major share of the economy today is dominated by the oil and the gas. However, it is a kind of a launch pad which is actually connecting with multilateral or multiple companies all over the world, particularly the greater Arab nations. There are 13 of them. It has got free trade agreement with all the 13 countries. It has got direct connect with major powers like Japan, US, UK, China, Australia. So actually it is going to provide us a very free, open platform for India. Whatever goods we are able to send there, they will be able to use the existing system available in the UAE and thereafter connect with the countries where we do not enjoy the direct FTA. Last but not the least, Devika, is one very important point that the IMEC is actually a force multiplier. It's a game changer. Conceptually, it has been launched during G20. But on ground, my friends there in Oman and elsewhere, they say 75% of the infrastructure is existing on ground. For the remaining 25%, maybe with the leadership like of Narendra Modi, our Honorable Prime Minister, will be able to expedite the process And despite what is happening, the violent activities in the Hamas and Israel and Palestine, we'll be able to identify a little skirting around. Maybe Alexandria through Greece will be able to connect with the Europe in a very faster mode. That is going to give us an alternate and a bigger challenge to the BRI that has been launched by China in the Middle East. Back to you, Devika.
Absolutely. Let me bring in Ambassador Veena Sikri into the conversation as well. Ambassador Sikri, I'd just like to understand, ma'am, firstly, your perspective and understanding of what is happening. As I was speaking to some of the earlier panelists as well, it is election season in India. We will be going to polls in just a short while from now. And before elections, Prime Minister Modi chooses to go to the UAE. He chooses to go to Qatar. We've had a grand gesture by Qatar in terms of the release of the 8 Navy veterans just yesterday before the Prime Minister's visit. The UAE making a grand gesture towards India with the inauguration of the first ever Hindu temple in the Middle East. What do you make of some of these developments that are taking place in the Middle East, ma'am?
I think one has to see the development as a complete change that is coming about in the geopolitics of the entire region. And I think that's really important to understand. I think, first of all, we have to commend the leadership of both India and UAE, the way they have crafted this bilateral friendship, the complete understanding. They are brothers to each other, the leaders of the Prime Minister of India and Sheikh Ahmed of the UAE. And, this understanding is built on a perspective that both leaders share about the role of India, the UAE, the Gulf countries, about the importance, about the friendship of India and UAE in crafting this new geopolitics. Let us see how, the whole traditional aspect that was there earlier, that UAE was, had his perspective on India was completely colored by Pakistan's views, and India could never hope to have any kind of a different view from UAE. That was the kind of perspective, and we saw that when our Prime Minister Modi first decided to visit UAE, I think in 2015 it was when he came, it was after so many decades. No other Prime Minister had visited UAE on a bilateral visit earlier, but our Prime Minister set the tone by understanding what is happening in the UAE and the importance of what is happening in the UAE to what is importance of what is happening in India. And he has created this understanding about our two countries' role in the region and in the world as a whole. Look at what the UAE is doing to change its perspective on the world. In 2020, UAE, opened up full bilateral relations with Israel. Only the third among the Arab countries, the Jordan and Egypt and now UAE, to have this bilateral relationship. So they were looking for this new perspective. They are finding their feet in the new geopolitics. They're finding their feet in a post-fossil fuels world. That, the fossil fuels, how long is their wealth based entirely on fossil fuels going to last? And in the post-fossil fuels world, where should they invest their money? Where should they invest, where the greatest benefit to their country and to their people? And they have found India as a very important partner. And the UAE fully understands the plurality of India, our people, how they are, the relationship being one of long term, and they understand what is going on in India and we understand what is going on there. So based on this, we've seen how the significance of the symbolic opening of the inaugural of the first ever Hindu temple, such a grand temple built on 27 acres of land, and I think about 13 to 14 acres of this land was donated by the Sheikh himself, by the president himself. So you can imagine how he has played his direct role in creating this understanding, because there's such a large percentage of Indians among those living in the UAE. I think India, the Indian population there is almost 4 million out of a 9 million total expat population in the UAE. So you can imagine the significance of the numbers of the people. But still, we know that there are many Indians living abroad in many countries, but rarely do they get this kind of understanding from the president of that country to have this temple, the first Hindu temple there. You can imagine the confidence it gives to the Hindu community, the confidence it gives to India, the way it boosts bilateral relations. And not only that, that is one important aspect. Then you have the UAE looking at investments in India. I think in the last year, 22-23, they were about the third or fourth largest investor in India. They are looking at India as a place where their investments can grow, where they can put their money and know with some confidence that this money will go into good projects, into projects which benefit their wealth capacity, their building of their wealth in the coming decades, and which will benefit India and UAE bilateral relations that will, increase both countries' role in the world of investments, in the world of wealth creation, in the world of benefit for their respective populations. So it is a win-win situation that has been built, but it's a win-win situation which has been crafted so carefully, so well, so much based on mutual trust and respect. Because very often you do see in many countries that there's a clear visibility of the importance and need to build this win-win situation between the two countries. But very rarely do you have this meeting of the minds of the two leaders and the two governments who then have gone on to develop this. The bilateral trade, $85 billion and growing, the investments, the trade, the people to people, and the way in which the investments will further develop and we understand each other. People are even saying that in the future you might even have a pipeline of water. You have fossil fuels coming from one side and water going from India to the UAE to help their people because it's a desert country, water starved. So you have these two pipelines going side by side.
Yes.
The sky is the limit.
Ambassador Sikri, I just like to understand from you, when we then talk about growing ties, have we, under current circumstances, under current changing global scenarios, have we then somewhere become natural partners, or are we moving towards becoming natural partners? Or has there been some vision and thought into what are the countries that really need to be tapped into on a very urgent basis?
The term of natural partners is significant. It's important. I think it's an apt distinction because it's not that this has happened overnight. It's over the last 10 years. And when over the period of 10 years, you build, your relationship brick by brick, and each time you see that the previous development is of mutual benefit, then you go further, bring in new areas, bring in new developments in trade and investment. You're building a natural relationship, a relationship that is in a way, irretrievable in the sense that it has gone so far ahead for the benefit of two people. I don't think it's going to be reversed anytime soon. It's an irreversible, mutually benefit-based relationship, which I think is important for both the people of both countries to understand. And I think the impact within India also of this new approach to India, the new confidence, the new mutual trust in developing this relationship, all the people of India see it and understand it. And when we saw with Qatar as well, our Prime Minister is going there tomorrow, and we saw the tremendously positive impact of the release of the 8 naval officers who have come home. 7 of them came home yesterday. And the impact it has had, how the leadership of Qatar understood the discussion that our Prime Minister had with their leader, Sheikh Tamim, during COP28 in Dubai. And over that, we saw that from a death sentence given a year and a quarter ago, the same naval officers are now being released and allowed to come home. So again, it speaks well of the personal relationship, the one-to-one relationship and understanding at the apex level, at the summit level. But this has also been developed. This understanding has been put to good use and developed for the benefit of the peoples through trade, through investment. With Qatar, we signed a $78 billion LNG contract, which will go on till 2048. Amazingly, of great benefit to India's energy security, of great benefit to assuring energy supplies for India's economic and industrial growth. So, I think that the way in which the relationship has been crafted, both with Qatar and with UAE, and I'm sure you'll have benefit effects in many of the other Gulf countries that we see are already coming up, where the decades-old suspicion has been replaced by trust. And it is trust built on coming and seeing their leaders come to our countries, our leaders go there. It's a mutual relationship and all the time. This is the importance, because if you have it entirely one-sided and the benefit is only to one country, the other side loses interest, and that has not happened in any of the Gulf countries. They continue to build upon the previous successes, and with more successes, more deep-rooted successes.
Okay, I'll come back to our guests in just a moment. Some lovely visuals once again coming from the UAE. Prime Minister Modi there meeting some kids of the Indian diaspora. Let's quickly dip into that for a minute. Alright, so there you heard it amidst chants of Bharat Mata Ki Jai and Modi. We have Prime Minister Modi there in the UAE, once again being greeted by members of the Indian diaspora and several others in the audience as well. Sudhakar ji, let's keep that. Let's keep the volume on. But I'd just like to bring in Major Sudhakar ji as well. Major Sudhakar ji, today are we at a point where we have the leader of our nation visiting the UAE for a significant bilateral visit, and there being chants of Modi hai to mumkin hai?
You said it, Devika. It's a reality actually. The world over the chorus, there is a rhythm which is actually, blowing all over the world. Everyone seems to be from California to Australia coast, East Coast, from Japan to down south. So everyone seems to be talking about that, and the Prime Minister of Australia has been calling a Prime Minister as the boss. There is nobody who's superior to him. Modi hai to mumkin hai, and it is absolutely a statement of fact. But having said that, let me just make very quick points. You see, we alluded to a couple of facts. It's about the trade having gone up from 60 billion to 84, 85 billion. And there is one very important agreement which was signed in 2022. That agreement was about SEPA. It's Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Our viewers need to understand that this particular agreement has put both the nations into the cusp of a revolution, economic and commercial revolution. So what is it? It allows Indian business people a kind of a preferential treatment to actually target I would say labor-intensive industries, textile industry, for example, jewelry, all such kind of this thing without any kind of embargo. They can go freely operate, and there is a 1% discount on the gold. People can buy and bring them to the market. So such like kind of provisions are there. Talk about the defense cooperation, Devika. This is mind-boggling. From 2003 onwards, I think the Chief of Staff of the UAE had visited India, and there have been air exercises going on. Recently, there is one defense exercise between both the countries, UAE and India, in the Rajasthan sector itself. And Saudi Arabia thing having been concluded on 29th of February. So likewise, there is a huge amount of collaborative effort which is going on with almost all the countries. And I would like to actually mention one thing, that the same countries were the best of friends of Pakistan at one point in time. Pakistan stands isolated. It is high time that Pakistan realizes the mistakes that they are carrying out, and the fault line they're actually going deeper and deeper into their mundane administration of the country. It's better that they wake up and they give some kind of autonomy to the democratic pillars to survive and also revive the democracy, the norms of democracy in the country. So that is another. Last but not the least, Devika, I would say that there is only one leader in the world today who has got responsibility, maturity, credibility. and also a vision. This mere card that we are talking of, or the UPI we are talking of, I don't think he has ever made a statement, in public statement anywhere. It's my analysis. It is such a kind of a provision that it can bind the people, it will bring people of the world together with a common kind of a roadmap for growth and prosperity. Back to you, Devika.
Absolutely. Gautam Mukherjee, at the same time, discussing now what will be happening tomorrow, the grand inauguration of the Mandir. To be very fair, the UAE did not have to make this gesture. But the Prime Minister, in his very short clipping that has come out of him sitting with Al Nahyan, has in fact said that a few years ago when I met you, I raised this concern that there is a large Indian population, there is a large Hindu population. Please see what can be done for them. And within no time, the land was allocated 27 acres and today the Mandir is built. Why exactly do you feel then this shift is also being made towards India by UAE?
Well, if you look at geopolitics, everybody's sort of commented on it already. The real growth has shifted from Europe and even America, though America is technologically top dog, to India and China. China is in difficulties because of its recent policies under Xi Jinping, but it built a fantastic machine under Deng Xiaoping, and it is something that, if you like, between India and China, you have about 50% or more of the future potential of the world. Now, if you live in countries with low populations, which is true of most of the Gulf barring Yemen, then there is only so much that you can do within the place because consumption is not very high. Whereas in India, whatever you can make is consumed largely by the domestic market. And we make enough, and more companies that are coming here are making enough to export. The China Plus One policy is benefiting us. The new initiatives in high technology are benefiting us. So what happened in the UAE is quite some time back, they got away from this Islamic Brotherhood business, which wasn't serving their purpose. They, for a long time, relied on the West for their growth in terms of their sovereign funds and so on. Even that didn't work out so well. So now India is where the future lies. And this is why they have changed their policies quite substantially. Not only that, whatever the propaganda may be, we have 200 million Muslims who are thriving. And that is not the case in most countries which are not Muslim majority. Devika.
Absolutely. And on that note, Ambassador Sikri, bringing you into the conversation as well, ma'am. Like I said, the UAE did not necessarily have to make this gesture. It's not as though if the Mandir was not inaugurated tomorrow, that our fintech deals would not take place, that our businesses would not be exchanged. But the fact that today there is a Muslim nation that is acknowledging the presence of Hindus and the presence of Hinduism as the third largest religion in the world. What does this shift then suggest to you, ma'am, in terms of the mindset or the perspective that one has held about Middle Eastern nations as well? Are they also then somewhere trying to send out a message that we understand the importance of soft power, we understand the importance of people-to-people connections, and those connections cannot happen simply on the basis of business deals that are signed. Larger gestures have to be made and acknowledged, and a message of tolerance and peace has to then go out from the Middle East as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on your assessment. I think that this is a tremendous gesture. But again, if I place it as a very significant shift in the way in which UAE and many other Arab countries have been looking at the world, their perspective on the role of Islam itself, the perspective on what role Islam should play and what should be the vision or the impression of Islam that other countries have. So this view, the move towards a more tolerant version, the move towards accepting, live and let live, that there's Sarva Dharma Sambhav, that there is place for all religions in the world. This is an important perspective that we get from this opening of the Hindu temple in the UAE. It's number one, a recognition of the role of the Indian community there, the importance of their contribution, and to fulfill their contribution and to continue this contribution that the Indian community has been making. They need their own places of worship, just as the Muslims need their own places of worship, the Christians need their own place of worship, and so on. So this is a very important acceptance. We've seen in the UAE a very strong movement towards Sarva Dharma Sambhav. We've seen this in Saudi Arabia as well. We've seen this in other Arab countries, Muslim countries as well. This is a very important move which has to be recognized and accepted and encouraged. And I think that the way in which our Prime Minister has built his friendship and understanding with the leadership in the UAE, leadership in Qatar, is significant because it has helped these leaders to understand the plurality of India, to understand our belief in Sarva Dharma Sambhav and how it is possible to have this belief in Sarva Dharma Sambhav all over the world, no matter which religion your individual country may be following. So this is a very important message that India has carried, is carrying, and will continue to carry to the world. And the inauguration of this temple, this Hindu temple, Swaminarayan temple in UAE, is a very important realization of the success of India's message of Sarva Dharma Sambhav. And the message that goes out, the message has been accepted by the leadership of UAE, and the message that goes out from the leadership to their own people, to their own population, that we are now accepting Sarva Dharma Sambhav, and we would like the people of UAE also to accept it in their daily lives, in their beliefs, in their practices, in their mindset. So this is a very, very significant move that, in all these issues, it is the mindset which ultimately brings the change. This message to the mindset of the people of UAE is significant. They're being told, their message is accept Hinduism. It does not impact your own belief, practice your own religion, but accept the faith of others. And I think the significance of this message that Prime Minister Modi has been conveying so successfary, the success of his message is really illustrated in the opening of this, in the inauguration of this beautiful Swaminarayan temple in the UAE. And this message is resonating. All over the Gulf, it is resonating. I think we must also understand that the relationship between the Gulf countries and India is also civilizational. It predates independence by millennia. It was always the dhows, the Arab dhows and the Indian ships, they were going up and down all the time and trade. And in fact, the countries of the Gulf, and some of them carried the trade on to Europe. So this IMEC, the India Middle East corridor, is a reincarnation of the very old civilizational ties between India and the Gulf and the Arab nations of this area. And it is significant that we've been able to bring it back. We've been able to revive it. We've been able to take it back to its previous glory. And the people of UAE are getting this message. So this is how the message has to be conveyed. It is a great success of India's message that Prime Minister Modi has sought to convey within India and outside.
Absolutely. I thank all of our guests for joining us on the broadcast. In fact, as we're speaking, some shots were coming in of the Elan Modi, Hello Modi event that will be held tonight at 8 p.m. where the Prime Minister is expected to address the large Indian diaspora of the UAE and, of course, through that platform, send out a message to the world as well. I once again thank our panelists for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.